I stood frozen outside the ICU room, listening through the thin door. My stepmother Thelma leaned in close to my father's unconscious body and whispered, "It will all be over soon, baby. Just let go." Her hand stroked his arm, but her voice, it was not loving. It was cold, final. My heart slammed against my chest, and the sterile scent of disinfectant filled my nostrils as bile rose in my throat. My father, Clifton, had always been full of life. Now he looked like a ghost, shrunken and pale under the fluorescent lights. Tubes snaked from his arms, and machines beeped steadily, reminding us all that he was still fighting, still breathing. But Thelma, she sounded like she wanted him gone. And what haunted me the most was the way she smiled when no one was looking. Before I continue, I want to take a quick moment to thank all of you who have subscribed to the channel. You have no idea how much your support means to me. And to those watching for the first time, or those who keep coming back but have not yet hit that subscribe button, please do. It is the fuel that keeps this channel alive and gives me the strength to share more of these real, raw, and powerful stories. Do not forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to the moment everything changed. My name is Lisa. I am 27 years old, and I was born and raised in a small town in Arkansas where everybody knows everybody's business, or at least they think they do. My father, Clifton, was the strongest man I knew. A mechanic by trade, he had hands like steel but a heart that turned to jelly any time I called him Daddy. He raised me alone after my mother passed when I was just 8. And when I turned 15, he married Thelma, a woman with a church smile and eyes that watched too closely. Thelma was younger than my father by at least 15 years. She worked at a local flower shop and always smelled like lilac and lies. I tried to like her. I really did. But there was something about her that made my skin crawl, like she was always playing a part. When my father started getting sick 6 months ago, everything changed. He lost weight rapidly, had dizzy spells, and began forgetting things. The doctors chalked it up to early onset dementia and some kind of internal infection. But I saw something different. I saw fear in his eyes. I saw the way Thelma started making all the decisions about his meds, his meals, even his money. One day, I visited him earlier than usual and caught Thelma pouring something from a dark bottle into his tea. She claimed it was an herbal supplement. I asked to see the bottle. She said she threw it away. Her answers never added up. When he collapsed for the last time and was rushed to the hospital, I stayed by his side as much as I could. But Thelma fought me for control. Legally, she had the final say. And she wasted no time pressing for the doctors to take him off life support. He would not want to live like this. She kept saying, lips pursed, fake tears streaming down her cheeks. I begged her to wait, to give him more time. But she refused. She always had the final word. They pulled a plug that Friday. We buried him under a gray sky with barely 10 people in attendance. I felt like I was standing in the middle of a nightmare. But the real nightmare started 2 weeks later. I went to pick up some groceries and walked into the town diner for a quick coffee. And there, in the corner booth by the window, sat Thelma, laughing, clinking glasses with someone I never expected to see again. Uncle Hector, my father's older brother, his best friend. And there it was, glinting on her left hand as she reached across the table to stroke his cheek. A brand new diamond ring. I stood there, coffee cup trembling in my hand, my heart thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Thelma threw her head back laughing, a laugh I had not heard since before my father fell sick. And Uncle Hector, he was smiling like a man in love. His arm rested behind her on the booth, and their fingers were laced together like teenagers. I stormed out without even placing an order. By the time I got home, my hands were still shaking. I locked myself in the bathroom, stared at my reflection, and whispered the words I had been too afraid to say out loud until that moment. She killed him. I could feel it in my bones. That woman, my stepmother, poisoned my father, watched him suffer, and then moved on with his own brother like he had never even existed. I called Hector that night, trying to be calm, pretending I just wanted to catch up. He sounded hesitant, like he already knew I had seen them. "We are adults, Lisa," he said. "You have to understand, things happen." "Things happen? You mean like your brother dying and you proposing to his widow before the dirt on his grave settled?" I snapped. He hung up. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my father's old desk, surrounded by photos of better times, birthdays, fishing trips, lazy Sunday barbecues. I opened drawers looking for anything. Answers, maybe. I found his old journal and thumbed through it, but it stopped abruptly 4 months before his death. Something gnawed at my mind. A memory. One afternoon, weeks before he collapsed, I overheard Thelma on the phone in the kitchen. I was visiting unannounced. She did not hear me come in. Her words stuck with me. I put in the tea again. "He barely notices the taste now. I think we are almost there." I had no proof then. But now I had motive. Now I had questions. The next morning, I contacted the hospital. Asked if it was possible to have a toxicology test done post-cremation. They told me it would be complicated if the body was gone. But when I checked with the funeral home, I found out something that made me drop the phone. My father had not been cremated yet. Thelma had requested it, but never followed through on the paperwork. Apparently, she had gotten distracted and never came back to finish signing. My father's body was still being held in cold storage. I drove straight there and requested a private autopsy. I told them I suspected poisoning. They required next of kin authorization, and thankfully, as his daughter, I still had legal rights. Waiting for the results felt like torture. I stayed up pacing, praying I was wrong, praying I was not about to uncover something too dark to carry. 3 weeks later, I received a call from the medical examiner. He asked if I could come in to discuss the results in person. That was when I knew. I sat in the examiner's office. Every muscle in my body clenched tight. He slid a paper across the table. "Traces of thallium," he said. "Highly toxic. It was commonly used in rat poison years ago. Extremely rare to find in the body unless it was given intentionally." My head spun. He continued, "Given the amount and the pattern of decline in your father's health, I would say it was administered in small doses over a long period of time. Slow poisoning. Planned. Controlled. Hidden under the guise of care." It felt like my lungs had collapsed. I clutched the report and drove straight to the police station. I walked in trembling but determined. I handed the file over to the officer on duty and said 5 words I never thought I would say. My stepmother murdered my father. The day the police arrested Thelma, the entire town buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. People whispered in the grocery aisles. Old ladies clutched their rosaries in church. Even my boss at the library looked at me with a strange mix of pity and fear. No one could believe it. Sweet, smiling Thelma, taken away in handcuffs while wearing that same diamond ring that had burned itself into my memory. Hector claimed ignorance. Said he had no idea what Thelma had done. He looked me straight in the eye outside the courthouse and said, "I loved your father. I never would have. I did not know Lisa." But I did not believe him. Not fully. Because there were too many pieces that still did not fit. As the investigation deepened, more secrets came to the surface. The police found a hidden bottle of thallium in the shed behind our house, buried beneath boxes of old Christmas decorations. And in Thelma's email records, they uncovered search histories that made my stomach turn. How much poison kills slowly, rat poison symptoms in humans, insurance payout rules for spouses. The most crushing blow came when a manila envelope showed up at my door one morning. No return address. Inside was a copy of a will, signed by my father 3 months before he died, naming me as the sole beneficiary of all his assets. A handwritten note in the margins read, "I cannot trust her anymore. If anything happens to me, Lisa needs to know everything." It was dated just 2 weeks before his final collapse. He knew. My father suspected something, and he tried to protect me, but he ran out of time. The original document had never made it to the lawyer's office. Thelma had probably intercepted it. But whoever sent this copy, maybe a friend of my father's or a guilty conscience from someone on the inside, had given me what I needed. That same week, I returned to the funeral home and asked to visit my father's resting place. The weather was warm, unusually still. I sat beside his grave, fingers pressed to the grass above his coffin, and whispered every single thing I had held in for months. The grief, the rage, the guilt that I had not stopped it in time, and the promise that I would never let her win. 2 weeks later, Thelma's bail was denied. The trial date was set. The district attorney told me they had a solid case. Poison. Motive. Forged paperwork. And now, a second investigation had opened into whether Hector had knowledge of the murder or participated in a cover-up. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, I received another envelope. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with shaky handwriting. It read, "She did not act alone. It started years ago. Look into 2016, the cabin." There was no signature, no explanation, just a date and a place. My heart dropped. In 2016, my father had a mysterious fall at our old family cabin. He said it was an accident, slipped on the deck. But what if it was not? What if the plan had started long before I ever realized? I closed the letter and stared out the window, the Arkansas sky turning orange with dusk. The truth had torn my family apart, but silence had done even more damage. Now I am choosing not to be silent anymore. I am speaking my father's name. I am telling our story, because secrets fester in the dark, but truth, no matter how painful, is light. Thank you for watching and listening to this story. If you have ever faced betrayal, abuse, or loss, know that you are not alone. Please drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel so we can keep telling the stories that need to be heard. Until next time, stay aware, stay strong, and never ignore your gut.